Hey everyone, Israel is currently in a war against the terror organization Hamas, and we know how hard it can be to keep up with all the news. So if you haven't had the time to stay on top of the latest developments out of Israel, we're here for you. I'm Ladar Gavelazi, and this is ILTV's Weekly Review.
The White House meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu took on historic region-changing proportions as Trump proposed a U.S. takeover of the Gaza Strip and the relocation of nearly 2 million residents to Egypt, Jordan, and elsewhere. ILTV's Steve Leibowitz reports.
The meeting between President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu yielded many headlines, but none bigger than Trump's proposal that the U.S. take over Gaza and move its residents.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area.
While meeting Netanyahu and in the press conference following, Trump declared that the U.S. could seize control over Gaza and permanently displace the entire Palestinian population of the war-devastated enclave. Trump said that all 2 million Palestinians from Gaza should be moved to countries like Egypt and Jordan after the war started by Hamas's attack on Israel on October 7th, 2023.
I know they've spoken about it with you, and they say they're not going to accept. I say they will. But I think other countries will accept also. I think that Gaza maybe is a demolition site right now. If you look at Gaza, there's hardly a building standing, and the ones that are going to collapse. You can't live in Gaza right now, and I think we need another location. I think it should be a location that's going to make people happy.
Trump said the U.S. will take over Gaza and do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for rebuilding Gaza into a mecca for jobs and tourism.
And I don't want to be cute, I don't want to be a wise guy, but the Riviera of the Middle East, this could be something that could be so bad, this could be so magnificent.
And joining me now to discuss all of this is former ambassador to the U.S., Danny Ayalon. Thank you, Danny, for joining.
My pleasure.
So, Danny, the biggest headline from last night's meeting seems to be President Trump's statement that the U.S. will take control of Gaza and relocate its residents. And while this certainly makes for a striking, flashy headline, how realistic is this plan, in your opinion? And how serious do you think President Trump is about pursuing it?
Well, I think the president was quite serious, but it also may be a negotiations tactic because he always, and we have seen this method when in other issues like with Canada or Mexico or Panama, he sets a very high bar and then he has much more room to maneuver and negotiate. This may be the case here, but quite frankly, if you take out the political I would say, argumentation or the political gist, it does make sense because Gaza is a demolition site. I guess Trump, given his great experience, vast experience as a builder, he knows how to do these things. Also, the fact that he offered the United States to do it, it's also because of their good experience and they have the expertise, but also I think this can bring billions, if not dozens of billions of dollars to the United States Treasury. And indeed, this is out of the box thinking, and we will see how it is received. Right now, we know that just as a knee-jerk reaction, all the Arab countries said no, the Palestinians said no. We'll see what the people of Gaza say. It's the same thing. If you remember, in just a few years ago in Syria, because of the war situation in Syria, 6 million Syrians left Syria. So here we're talking about 2 million, and especially as you have a lot of room. You know, there is a vast expanse of land just adjacent to Gaza in the Sinai. So we'll have to wait and see. In any case, it is, you know, having people not only scratching their heads, but people will have to think proactively. That will include, of course, the leaders in the region.
Yeah, for a U.S. president to have this kind of courage or audacity to make these kind of remarks it's pretty incredible. Now, after this meeting between President Trump and a first foreign leader that he's met with, Benjamin Netanyahu, what other elements stood out to you, Danny? Was there anything in particular that resonated during this discussion?
Yes, as you mentioned, I think the fact that Netanyahu was the first one invited to the White House as a foreign leader, especially still within the first 2 weeks of Trump's presidency. He has not been there more than 2 weeks in the Oval Office and really being busy with all the issues of domestic things that they have there with hundreds of executive orders. And then he has time not only for Israel and its prime minister, but also for the Middle East. And I think that shows how high it is on the priority of the president to make peace in the Middle East. And we know what are the elements with Saudi Arabia, with the moderate Sunni countries. An American-led alliance here in the Middle East would be the strongest message to the axis of evil, whether it's Iran or Russia or China. So I think this is very much high on the agenda, and it is achievable. And of course, in order to make this region prosperous and stable again, you have to bring down the Iranian regime. He's not talking in these terms yet, but first and foremost, Iran has to just shed its nuclear capabilities. And I think here the president was very serious.
Now, Netanyahu emphasized that his priorities include both the release of all the hostages and dismantling Hamas to ensure it no longer poses a threat to Israel. Do you think these two objectives are in conflict? Will we see phase 2 of the deal unfold soon?
Well, everybody wants to see this phase 2 complete. Everybody wants to see all the hostages back home here with their people, with their families. Another maybe ramification of this Trump's idea of relocating the Gazans is that it may put more pressure on Hamas, because there is a way now to tell the Gazans, if you don't want to leave, if you want to stay, then in the least, Hamas has to relocate. And I think this is also one of the objectives of the war, that Hamas will never be in will not have any standings in Gaza, not militarily and not from a civilian point.
Speaking of this, we've heard Netanyahu plans to replace the Shin Bet and Mossad chiefs on the negotiating team and appoint Ron Dermer instead. What do you think such a move signals about Israel's strategy moving forward?
I think that it has become much more political now, given the fact that most of the technical I would say points of the negotiation has been already achieved, and it's all in writings. Now it's a matter of the political will and political maneuvers, maybe. Near as I can recall, the head of the Shin Bet was very happy with that, and he was quite endorsing this idea of giving a political figure running the negotiations and not a one which is like head of Shabak.
Danny Ayalon, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
And as 3 more hostages came home yesterday, the nation was moved as we witnessed their reunions with their loved ones. ILTV's Ariella Luchiani is at Hostages Square. Ariella, what can you tell us?
Yes, thank you, Ladar. So I am here now at Hostage Square in Tel Aviv, where just yesterday hundreds and hundreds of people gathered as we marked another extremely emotional and moving day as 3 hostages returned home after over a year in captivity. After a long 484 days, Keith Siegel, Yarden Bibas and Ofer Calderon returned to Israel and reunited with their loved ones. Ofer Calderon, a French-Israeli dual national, was the first to embrace his family as he arrived at Sheba Medical Center, where his children rushed to greet him. Calderon, kidnapped on October 7th along with 2 of his children, was freed and met with his family, his laughter and jokes bringing light to what was otherwise a painful chapter. His children, Sahar and Erez, were released earlier, and his reunion brought joy and hope for those still waiting. 65-year-old Israeli-American citizen Keith Siegel's reunion with his daughters was filled with tears of joy and relief. His wife, Aviva, had been freed earlier in November 2023, but his return brought a sense of healing to their family. But for Yarden Bibas, the reunion was bittersweet. Although his emotional embrace with his father, Eli, and sister Ofri was touching, the weight of uncertainty was heavy. Yarden's wife, Shiri, and their 2 children, Ariel and Kfir, were taken alongside him, and though fears of their fate have grown, Yarden's return was a reminder of the deep scars left behind. His family has asked for privacy during this difficult time as they hold on to the hope that his strength can heal. Israeli hospitals are prepared to treat the released hostages with urgent medical and psychological care. They ensure privacy, provide trauma support, and create a calm environment for recovery and family reunions.
484 days after October the 7th, Ofer Calderon, Keith Siegel, and Yarden Bibas have returned to Israel. At Sheba and Ichilov medical centers, the returnees are undergoing initial medical evaluation. They have been reunited with their families and friends.
This is a moment of mixed emotions, joy for those who have returned and heartbreak for those still held hostage. Israel's healthcare system, alongside its people, continues to support the returnees and their families, and with each day, the hope remains that the remaining captives will soon join their loved ones in this long-awaited reunion. Now, while these reunions are a testament to the resilience of the Israeli people and stand as a beacon of hope, undertones of tragedy persist as 79 hostages remain in Gaza, and this is something we were harshly reminded of just yesterday as Yarden Bibas returned home to his wife and 2 children still in captivity.
Thank you, Ariella. Bittersweet return. And after the releases, we're starting to learn more about what captivity was like for the men. ILTV's Shosh Bedrosian has the details.
While 4 male hostages are officially home after Saturday's release came to fruition, the testimonies from these released hostages are just harrowing to hear. From prolonged periods of isolation to physical and psychological abuse, each hostage has their own story, experience, and trauma. Ofer Calderon, Keith Siegel, and Yarden Bibas are the latest hostages to return home after more than 484 days of being locked away in gruesome Hamas captivity. All 3 men miraculously walked out of Gaza on their own 2 feet, but their time in captivity tells a different story. According to Israeli media reports, all 3 men said they were held in harsh conditions, frequently moved to different locations, and had little food. 65-year-old Keith Siegel is the first American-Israeli hostage to be released in this deal. Kidnapped from Kfar Aza, reports say Siegel was held in Gaza City with other hostages. He was kept in tunnels from time to time, but spent most of his time in between homes, locked in rooms so he would not be seen. With barely any food, Siegel, who is a vegetarian, ate meat in order to survive. Hamas released a propaganda video of him back in April. The report said Bibas and Calderon were held together at the beginning of their captivity and were beat up by terrorists and even put them in cages and abused them physically and mentally. The men say they were held underground and in buildings, moved around frequently, and held with other hostages. At the time of Calderon's release, Hamas dressed him in military clothing and was treated like a reservist soldier in captivity. 36-year-old Bibas, taken from Nir Oz, walked out of Hamas captivity without his wife Shiri and 2 young children, Kafir and Ariel. The 3 of them remain in captivity and were supposed to be released on the first day of the deal, according to the framework. Bibas said he was constantly relocated in Khan Yunis and learned Arabic. Bibas endured horrific psychological abuse, according to the report, after his captors forced him to make a video claiming his wife and children were killed in an IDF airstrike in November of 2023. He said his captors would constantly talk about them. And we're learning more information about released hostage Gadi Moses, who was held alone for his entire 15 months in captivity. Every 5 days, he said he was given a bowl of water to shower using a cup. He also lost 15 kilograms. The 5 Thai nationals released said they were held in underground tunnels where they struggled to breathe and were not always given food. And the mother of Emily Damari, who was freed in the first hostage release in this deal, said her daughter was held in UNRWA facilities and her captors refused to give her medical treatment. Damari lost 2 fingers in captivity after she was shot on October 7th. The Bibas family released their first statement saying a quarter of their family is now home, and Yarden came home to an unbearable reality. Of course, they're still calling for the release of Shiri and their 2 young children, Kafir and Ariel.
Thank you, Shosh. Of course, the Bibas family remain on all our minds.
The strong comments made by President Donald Trump have caught some Israelis off guard with his direct comments regarding the future of Gaza and what it could mean to the country. ILTV's Shosh Bedrosian is here to make sense of it, as she reports from Tel Aviv.
Well, Israelis woke up to the comments President Donald Trump made overnight in reference to Gaza, specifically saying he wants the U.S. to not only take it over, but to own the land inside of Gaza, and even saying he potentially sees it as the Riviera of the Middle East. Of course, this has Israelis looking inward at themselves, what this could mean for them and the future of their country. A potentially new future for Gaza. What does it entail and how will it impact Israelis? That's the question everyone has on their mind here. With some critics calling Trump's plan, quote, outlandish and, quote, unrealistic, his remarks touch the hearts of some Israelis who see the future of Gaza. Some wonder whether there would be a return of Jews to Gush Katif, an area of Israeli settlements until disengagement in 2005. Here's what some Israelis had to say about Trump's comments.
Well, if I understand Trump correctly, Gaza may become a new Miami Beach, and if he can get any of these other countries to take these Gazan refugees and let them go someplace else, problem solved.
See, the end result is peace, one way or the other. He's not got similar ideas to people in the past. Perhaps his ideas will bear some fruit. He's an extreme man, but, it seems like he's a lot more measured than he was last time, more organised and ready for this, so perhaps he's got a plan.
Well, I'm not in favour of it at all, and I think it would be bad for Israel. I think what Trump has suggested last night, unfortunately, I think will be unhelpful for the release of the hostages, because I think Hamas is less likely to want to go along with the negotiations if it means that they've got to withdraw and then Trump would follow up with his plan. So I think it's unhelpful for the hostages.
It's unclear if President Donald Trump's comments about Gaza will have any impact on the current negotiations happening inside of Doha in regards to the second phase of the ceasefire and hostage negotiation deal, which could free all the remaining hostages still in Hamas captivity at this time. Right now, we are expecting another hostage release to take place on Saturday. Sivan?
And across the ocean, a shocking wave of anti-Semitic attacks has rocked Australia, leaving the Jewish community fearful yet defiant. From violent graffiti on schools to a chilling discovery of explosives, these incidents have sparked urgent calls for stronger protection. ILTV's Ariella Lichiani has more.
Jewish schools and synagogues in Sydney have become the latest targets of a disturbing rise in anti-Semitic crimes. Just as students returned from summer break, their school was defaced with hateful messages. The fear escalated when authorities uncovered explosives in a trailer capable of causing mass casualties. Police believe the attack could have been fueled by anti-Semitic motives. With a growing sense of unease, community leaders are calling for immediate action. New South Wales Premier Chris Minns did not mince words.
It is utterly appalling and shameful that an individual would spray racist, hate-filled messages on a school. It is antithetical to everything that Australia represents in 2025.
Authorities have since ramped up security with increased police patrols near Jewish institutions. Federal leaders, however, are facing criticism for not doing enough.
I've always been such a proud Australian. I love this country. I think it's the best country in the world. But for the first time in my life, I actually feel really let down by Australia. I feel let down by our leadership, Albanese, Penny Wong. I feel that as Jews, they haven't protected us. We've been on our own. We've been let down.
With the Jewish community standing resilient and authorities vowing to bring those responsible to justice, the fight against anti-Semitism in Australia remains urgent and ongoing.
At least 2 soldiers were killed and 8 injured in a terror attack this morning as a terrorist gunman with an automatic weapon attacked an IDF outpost in the Jordan Valley. ILTV's Devo Klein reports.
The gunman approached on foot, undetected, and surprised 2 soldiers preparing to open the Tayassir checkpoint for Palestinian traffic. They exchanged fire with the gunman at close range for several minutes. The terrorists then managed to enter the base and reach the watchtower. A backup team arrived at the scene and opened fire on the gunman from outside the army post, forcing him to run. After a chase, a soldier tossed a grenade at the terrorist, killing him instantly. 8 soldiers were wounded, including 2 who were evacuated in critical condition. Later, the IDF announced that the 2 soldiers had succumbed to their wounds. They were identified as 39-year-old Sergeant Major in the reserves Ofer Young from Tel Aviv and reservist Tzvika Friedman from Ein HaNatziv. Tzvika leaves behind a wife and 6 children. The terror attack came amid the ongoing Operation Iron Wall, an anti-terror op conducted by the IDF aimed at confronting terrorist threats in northern Samaria. The tragic results today ended with 2 reservists killed by a terrorist and 2 families shattered, forever changed, on this Tuesday afternoon. May they both be of blessed memory.
Iran is reportedly accelerating its nuclear weapons program, with new intelligence suggesting the country may be on track to develop a crude nuclear weapon within months. This comes amid rising tensions with Israel and continued military pressure on Iran's infrastructure and U.S. President Trump taking office. A new intelligence report published by the New York Times reveals that Iran may be fast-tracking its nuclear weapons program. The U.S. has uncovered evidence that Iranian scientists are pursuing a quicker, less advanced route to building a nuclear weapon. This could potentially enable Iran to develop a crude device within months rather than taking years, though the weapon would not yet be sophisticated enough for missile deployment. Despite these developments, U.S. officials caution that Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has not made a definitive decision to pursue a full nuclear arsenal. The intelligence also comes amid setbacks for Iran's regional influence, with key allies like Hezbollah and Hamas facing significant challenges. Furthermore, Israeli airstrikes have targeted Iran's missile defense systems and nuclear-related infrastructure in their previous attack, further complicating Tehran's military capabilities. Meanwhile, U.S. and Israeli officials continue to monitor Iran's activities closely, particularly as both countries assess whether a nuclear deterrent might be Iran's strategic response to potential military threats from the West. As President Trump prepares to meet with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu today, Iran's nuclear program is expected to be a central topic of discussion, with both leaders weighing the options and military responses.
For more of the latest updates from Israel, make sure to subscribe to our newsletter at iltv.tv or download the ILTV Plus app. That's it for ILTV's weekly review. Stay safe and see you next week.